Okay, everybody, good evening. How's everyone doing? My name is Matthew Calvert. I am Director of Academic Policy here at Montclair State University for the Office of Undergraduate Education. So I'm going to get started now. I'm sure some people will be joining us as we go. Also, full disclosure, I am working remotely right now. So you may hear one of my three small children at some point. Hopefully they won't be too much of a distraction, but I'm sure all of us can relate a little bit, at least to that situation. But anyway, if there are any questions that you have throughout the whole presentation, the chat box should be open. The Q&A box should also be open. So I will try to answer those at the end. So don't stress out if I don't get to it right away. But I will be likely, I think this presentation will take about 25 to 35 minutes. I will then open it to questions. I will do the best I can to answer everything. I want this to be useful for everyone. I want this to be relaxed. I want this to be exciting. Whatever you feel like you need, please don't hesitate to throw it in the chat. And again, for those of you who may have missed right from the beginning, my name is Matthew Calvert. I am the Director of Academic Policy at Montclair State. I have been at Montclair State for almost 10 years, and most of that time has been in academic advising. I was an advisor for our pre-major, our undeclared population in what's called University College. And that was about 9 years of my time here. So I come with a lot of experience. I hope to be able to give you all something really useful. So you and your students can make a really good decision about if Montclair State is right for you, or honestly, if you already made that decision, to hopefully help you feel a little better about it. But anyway, like I said, questions, feel free to write them down and I'll try to get to them in the order that they come in at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. Let's see what happens. So I wanted to start with some very general information. And we'll go from there. So what is academic advising? Now, all of you may have as a kind of a related experience of the guidance counselor in high school. And it's not a perfect fit. And we're going to explain why in a little bit. But some of the things that we do may be at least similar to that. The academic advisor is someone who is there to help support the student. We consider ourselves as educators, as teachers. And although we may not be in the classroom at all times while we're doing it, we have something to impart and we have this relationship with the student that is an important one. It may not be teaching English. It may not be teaching history or sciences. It's teaching how college works. So it is an educational process. We are educators and we're here to guide the students in meeting certain outcomes. And it says pre-major only because I adapted it from the University College presentation and I missed that version. But it's a person that's there for anyone, whether they're a declared student or a pre-major undeclared student, to meet certain learning outcomes, to feel confident in the transition to the university, to understand how things work, to understand the important policies, to be able to learn how to go about the educational process. So what does this mean in some more detailed ways? Well, let's take a look. Advising, oftentimes students come see an advisor when they're ready to pick classes, but it's important for everyone to know that that's not all that we do, and it's not even what we see ourselves as the most important thing that we do. It's not just for when students struggle, and you'll see that there are a few things I write down here that we particularly do at all times, not just when students are struggling. And as I mentioned, it's not just a continuation of that high school guidance office. It's intended to help clarify academic goals. Now, if you are interested as we go as well, you can throw in the chat a little more information about your student and maybe some of the programs that they're looking at taking. If we have a lot of biology students or business students or so forth, I can help explain some of those more specifics and with more clarity. But whether your student comes in with a specific major or whether they are coming in pre-major, it's very likely that they need some more guidance on really what their goal is. So a student comes in as a biology major, they may be thinking, oh, medical school is what I want. And maybe that does end up happening, but we want to kind of talk through and make sure that that all the other options that are out there are really thought through, and that they've done the work to really feel good about where they're going, or if they don't, to pick something else. So if the student is not in a major, well, the academic advisor's primary goal is to help students take these academic goals and then help them select a major and maybe a minor combination that get the students to where they want to be. For our declared students, this process is partially, well, let's take a look at if the major is a good fit. Let's see what minors we can maybe partner with it to again, help achieve those goals that we have. Montclair State's a big place. We've got 20,000 students, about 15,000 undergrads. And there's a lot of resources and there's a lot of opportunities, but that also means sometimes things are a little hard to find right away. So the academic advisor is an expert in simply knowing how to get things done and where the things are. That's not just physical, but it's also literally where, if I need help in a class, what do I have? Well, we have the tutoring center. Let me help you get connected. I need support because I lost a loved one recently. I need help to figure out where to go to talk to someone. Okay, so our counseling and psychological services. The academic advisor is there as an expert in resources and opportunities. Some of the things that we might be referring, you may not think of right off the bat as academic. Like I mentioned, our counseling and psychological services, that often does come into play in academic. So I want you to think of what we do as a little bit broader than maybe what you may be realizing as an academic experience. Create an ongoing academic plan. It is our goal to help students graduate in 4 years. I'm sure you know that that doesn't happen for everyone, but it's a real concern of ours. I'm sure it's a real concern of yours to spend as little time as possible to get going with the next step in our lives. So we're here to help create that academic plan to keep students on track. And on a more individualized and personal level, an academic advisor is there to help students understand how to be scholars, how to be problem solvers, how to seek out the help that they need, how to take initiative, how to round out some of those rough edges of being an adult. So these are all things kind of broadly that you'll find as an from the advisors at Montclair State, and likely you'll find at most other universities as well. I see lots of things coming in the chat and the Q&A, so that's great. Again, we'll take care of those later on in the presentation. Let's look a little more at how advising will be different than the high school experience of your student. I put as the very first bullet point what I think is the most important piece that all the others fall into place with it. Your student is an adult at the point that they start school. Some of your students may not be literal adults, maybe 17, some even 16. I had a 15-year-old once at Montclair State. The university will treat every one of your students as an adult. And that means a lot of things. One thing that is really important is that your student will own their own academic records, which is a scary transition for a lot of people involved. But that also means that when the academic advisor needs to contact someone, they're contacting the student really, and that's it. The student absolutely has the opportunity to bring people in that can help support them. So, but the student is the driver of a lot of that. Well, and here's a little more about the difference with guidance in high school is that the advisor is a guide and a support, but they're not really going to be doing very much hands-on of the stuff that happens. The advisor is there to help the students figure out how to do it themselves. So what does that mean? Well, it's different each year. As an incoming freshman, as a first-year student, we need to help students a lot. So we reach out to them pretty frequently. We help the student know where to go. We teach the student how to literally register for their classes, simply how it works. We also teach them how to figure out what classes to take. We'll review them with the student, we'll approve them, but we don't register the student for those classes. So that's, I think, a good example of how that comes into play. The student really does drive the bus with all of this. And we're here in the very first passenger seat, kind of pointing, all right, turn a left here, turn a right here. We consider ourselves experts in policy and academic planning and referral of resources and in the individual curricula that the student will work with here at Montclair State. We have over 150 different programs. And when I was working with pre-major students in University College, I had to know at least the beginnings of every one of those majors and every one of those minors and every one of those programs. And so I became an expert in lots of different things up until the deadline to declare a major, which here at Montclair State is when a student reaches 60 credits. A student who is already declared into a major will have a slightly different experience where their advisors will be very good at the individualized program that your student is in and the next steps to prepare for the careers and other experiences like graduate school and medical school and other things like that. Again, we're not here to solve the problems. We're here to help the student find out how to do it themselves. So that can be a big transition for like I said, everyone involved, the parent, the student, but we all work together. We all try to figure out a way to do it and make sure it works. At Montclair State specifically, the structure of the university is somewhat decentralized, especially when it comes to academic advising. So we've got the one big university, and within that there are 7 different colleges and schools, and a college is simply a grouping of related fields. So you'll find that one of our schools is called the School of Business, and you'll find the business administration major, you'll find the economics major, you'll find the hospitality, sports, events, and tourism major, and the accounting major. In our College of Humanities and Social Sciences, that has the most different programs. You'll find everything from English and humanities to history to child advocacy and policy to political science, and lots of pieces in between. So there's 7 of these schools and colleges, and each one of them has slightly different ways of going about things. One of those colleges is called University College, and that would be the home for any of your pre-major undeclared students. So if your student already has a major, they will get an advisor who is a faculty member, who is a professor, who teaches in the classroom, who does research in the labs, who does research in the libraries and wherever else. And this is the first point of contact for all of these things that I've mentioned so far. The students who are declared also have access to a success center housed in the college for more support and for career services help as well. So the Success Center is individual to each of these colleges. College of Humanities, theirs is in Dixon Hall, where the College of Humanities and Social Sciences is housed. The School of Business, their Success Center is in the Feliciano School of Business. College of the Arts, their Success Center is in Moorhead Hall or in Calcia Hall. So they're again individualized support structures to help give much more individualized help. So the faculty, again, is an expert in that field. So if it's a biology major, it's a biology expert. A music major, a music expert. The Success Center, a little bit broader, but still an expert in some related fields. Pre-major students get a professional advisor until they declare in University College, who is, as I mentioned, their main goal is to help the students learn what the majors are that are here at Montclair State and which one's going to be the best fit for them. A little bit more about this structure. First year students are required to meet with an advisor once a semester before registering. There are a few other requirements as well after the first year for some students, but that's the bare minimum, is that we require every student to meet with an advisor in their first year. This is to at least be a touch point to make sure things are going well, but then also to make sure that they understand the curriculum that they'll be registering for as they go. Students schedule their own meetings in a lot of instances, or they come to their own professor's office hours, but advisors will reach out a lot. And advisors are also paying attention to students. So we have a lot of structures in place to help find students who might be struggling. And so the advisor is also a great touch point to the student to try to mitigate that before it becomes a serious issue. We also have a lot of electronic resources that the advisors use and the students use on their own to really make sure that this all works out in the right way. The first one that I like to call the student's best friend, even more than the advisor themselves, is what we call the degree audit. It's an outline that updates as students take classes of what they need to take to graduate. So it will include all of our general education. It's basically a set of classes every student takes, no matter their major. Tells us what they are, tells the students what they've already done and what they still need to do. It also tells them what they need to do in the major and what they need to do in their minors, as well as any broader requirements to graduate, like needing to take a certain number of credits, 120 credits to graduate. So it updates as if the student goes and lets them know what they still need. Navigate is an in-house program that we use. Other universities use it as well, but once a student deposits and starts getting connected to the advisor as a real relationship, Navigate is a system we use for students to schedule those appointments with advisors, with tutors, with other support. We also contact students through Navigate, and we write up notes to make sure that we remember what goes from meeting to meeting. So we can text students as well through Navigate. So it's a really great way for us to meet students wherever they are. Email is the official form of communication, but we know students are always on their phones. So a text might be the easiest way to get in touch with them. Nest, I like to consider that where the business of school gets done. That's where students pay their bills, where they register for classes, where they fix problems with their records, where they change their major, where pretty much everything happens. So these resources are probably the top 3 that we use to help make sure that students are getting what they need. With this COVID world, Zoom is always an opportunity to meet with students. We also love meeting students in person. We can get a lot done that way. And like I said, most appointments, students are the ones that make them. Or students are the ones that come to the professor's office hours to be able to seek out those appointments as well. But we have lots of opportunities to get all of this done. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. Once your student deposits, here's a few things that you can expect to see over the coming months. Advisors will be reaching out starting next month. In about a month, we will be saying, hi, I hear you deposited, welcome. We want to let you know what you're going to get into when you get here. We want to tell you some of the things we want you to do now and over the summer to prepare for orientation and to prepare for the first day of school. One of those things that we will be doing is sending out a survey, asking students what kind of classes are you interested in. We want to build your first schedule in order to make sure you're getting what you need. So you may have heard me I actually conflict with one thing that I said earlier. I said the student drives the bus at all times. The only exception to that is in this kind of intermediate period between high school and college, where the advisor will be building the student's first schedule using that survey and using our own expertise of the curriculum that the students don't have yet, but getting their interests and suggestions out on the table so then we can build the right one. So that's going to be coming for first-year students, not for transfers. If there's any family members of transferring students, we don't build that first schedule, but we will meet with the transfer student to make sure that they know what they're supposed to take. We'll all be at orientation, and we'll be offering meetings over the summer with any students that want them. So our priority at the moment, admittedly, is the students who are looking to become sophomores, juniors, and seniors and get them into their schedules. And that will conclude in mid-April, and then that's when we start looking to build some appointments for our incoming freshmen as well and our incoming transfer students over the late spring and summer. What else do advisors do that I didn't really talk too deeply about? One thing I really want to make sure hits home as well is that we're not just doing one-on-one meetings and outreach by email. We're encouraging students to go to events that are going to help them take something really new out of this experience. We're helping them gain leadership positions on campus. We're helping them do all of the learning outside and inside of the classroom. We're helping if a student realizes that they're not getting the studying done right before a test, finding those resources to attend a workshop on note-taking and test prep. We're helping students learn how to apply to the pre-med program so they can get ready to do something new and exciting. So we really try to be as broad as possible in helping students really get everything that they can out of this Montclair State experience. Some final thoughts. We recognize that family members, parents, advisors, faculty, and staff, we all really have the same goal here. We want the student to succeed. Whatever that means, whatever the goal is, whatever the dream is, whatever the next step after Montclair State will be, we want the student to be successful. And however we can help do that is going to be really important. We are going to go about this in a very different way than you are. Your student has your trust already. Help guide them to the things that you know that they're going to need. Feel free to ask the university questions. We are the experts. We want to be able to help you support your student, but we're going to be doing it in a different way and from a different angle. And I think that's important to keep in mind, that we're doing it too, but just with different tools at our disposal. You can assist your student in navigating these experiences as well. Our website has everything on it. In some ways that's really great. In some ways it's pretty tough to find what you need. I always recommend, if you think there's something on our website you want to know about, try searching for it. Don't point and click. It's impossible to find. But those resources, you can be a great influence on students taking them up and utilizing them. But help your student take ownership. If your student has a problem, a concern, a stress, oftentimes the first inclination is, let me try to solve it for you. And have the student try first, see what they can do on their own to take that initiative and see what they can learn from the experience. Help them find where they might have that relevant resource that will help them do it as well. In the end result is that we hope everything works out for the student as a whole. That was the presentation part, and I want to open it up, as I had mentioned, to questions into the experiences that are in the chat. So again, if you have something that you want me to talk about, feel free to put it in either of those places. I'm going to start with the chat, and then I'm going to move to Q&A, and then I'll go back and forth if needed. So from the beginning, let's see what we have here. Yeah, give me a moment while I get organized. Okay. Trish, how many students are in the nursing program? Okay, so nursing is a very interesting program here at Montclair State in a number of ways. It is very restricted. They don't let that many students in. And it is also the only major at Montclair State that students cannot add after they've begun here at Montclair State. So most majors you can apply as an incoming student and then again as a current student. And nursing is the only one you can't apply as a current student. And it's actually because the state is still looking to make sure that it's working out well. We're a relatively new program. We have all the certifications, but they're looking at how we do. This number of students, I believe it's between 50 and 70 in each class. Multiplied by 4, that gives you about 200 to 300 total students in the nursing program. But each incoming class has about 50, 60, or 70. Is it easy to shift from IT to computer science or data science? That's a good question. They, as you may already sense, they're similar in nature. And they are all restricted in some way by GPA and by certain grades and classes that students have taken in high school or later on here at Montclair State. Of those, computer science has the most stringent requirements. IT, slightly less so, and data science, slightly less from that as well. So switching from computer science to the others is easy because it was already the hardest to get into. IT to computer science, it really hinges on how well the student is doing in that very moment before we can know for sure whether it's going to work out. Luckily, a lot of the classes, they share in common in the beginning and they don't really differentiate until later. Great, I see communications and media, that's great. Our School of Common Media is underneath the College of the Arts. They do some great work over there and they have similar structure as I mentioned, a professor in comm will be the primary advisor, and then they've got an advisor, Kyle is his name, that works with comm students more broadly. students in the product design major. It's one of our smallest majors. It's also hard to get into. It requires an art portfolio to get in. I believe that they have typically between 5 and 10 new students every year. It is also one of our most specialized because it's not only in the art field, but it's also very hands-on and requires regular sketching of new ideas. So it comes out with a very specific outcome. You're going to end up working as an industrial designer, a product designer. And that is a niche field that does not have a lot of people entering it. So there are a lot of opportunities for students later on. Dual enrollment credits accepted, absolutely. That's something that admissions will give you much more information on if your student has dual enrollment credits with the high school and in a local college. But yes, we do accept those. We have had students bring in up to 2 years of dual enrollment credits in some instances if the school has very close partnerships with one of the local community colleges. So absolutely, that's something that you should look into. Okay, great. I see a question about the film major. Film is currently in a little bit of a transition. They just changed the curriculum a little bit in the School of Common Media across the board. And our film major has there are two film majors. They're both called film and television. One is a more broad critical analysis of film and television, some of the more production related skill sets as well. So that's one option. And then there's also becoming a filmmaker, really being behind the camera, writing doing screenwriting, doing some acting, doing some cinematography. So they're both competitive, and there will be a portfolio review for the cinematography and filmmaking more related one. But that's something, if you want any more than I just provided, I would recommend having admissions give you more information on that as well. Do you help choose the courses for the year and the teacher and who would be a good fit? We do help the students choose the courses. The student will pick those courses themselves. Most advisors will hesitate to recommend specific professors or instructors for two very simple reasons. The first one, who I think is a good instructor, is not necessarily the same as someone else on what they think. And that was certainly true when I was in college. My friends picked very different people than I did, who I thrived with. And that still happens now, that we want to make sure that students have as much information as we can give them without leading them in the wrong direction. The other reason is more practical. There are only so many sections one instructor is teaching, and they may not be available anymore for students, especially freshmen, even sophomores, who may be registering after the seniors and juniors already have, and that person might not be available anymore. So we don't want to get students very focused on individual instructors, but absolutely we want to pick good classes that are going to solve those academic goals that students have. Great, I see digital media sports comm major as an interest, and as a photography minor. Great. And I did mention during the presentation that advisor will be reaching out starting in mid-March and more formally over the summer, but then also throughout the semester to help them with getting prepared. Need to arrange for some extended time and things like that. This is a good place to explain another office that we have called the Disability Resource Center. If you have a student who received accommodations, what I mean by that is time and a half on tests, help with note taking, many other opportunities that happened in high school. If your student had this experience in high school, we have a lot of those able to be carried over at the collegiate level as well through our Disability Resource Center. Legally, the university cannot provide those resources unless you are connected to this Disability Resource Center and have gone through the paperwork process. This process, we can do it with the paperwork you had in high school. Nothing new is needed. Some accommodations may not be available anymore at the collegiate level. So I want you to know that the student will find some of these things easy and easy to accommodate here, and some things maybe not so much. But the Disability Resource Center will be the great contact to reach out to advise students in those things and to also explain those accommodations. Does the school split students into undeclared science or undeclared art? This is a great question, and I'm glad that you have me as a former advisor for undeclared pre-major students to explain that a bit more. All pre-major students will be in University College, but that doesn't mean that their experiences will be a flat generic one, and it's the same for everyone. What you'll soon find is that we have something called a discovery track. This discovery track is a almost like an influence on the pre-major experience. So if a student is interested in art, you're going to get an experience that's art related. Science, same thing. Business, same thing. This is an essential component of how University College runs things over there. So much so that they're actually expanding it for next year. I don't want to talk too much about what they're planning on because it hasn't been locked in, but I've been in discussions with it, and they will have a much more thorough experience individualizing the pre-major experience for those students. So sit tight on that. You will learn more, I'm sure, as early as at open house, if you decide to go to that, or Accepted Students Day. And definitely by orientation and the contacts with advisors over the summer. How does Gen Ed work for fine arts students? And what are the options, and do they get to pick? So yes, students do get to pick in most categories where there are a lot of options in most of these categories. Very few of them is take this one class. We need a fundamentals of speech class, take it. We need a writing 1 and a writing 2, take those. Most of them are take a philosophy or religion. Here's a list of 8. And so fine arts students, like any other students, have that opportunity. I'm sorry, my 2-year-old is stomping. So if you hear something, I apologize for that. The fine arts students do have a smaller Gen Ed than many of our other students. So there are some high level programs with a lot of requirements where certain exemptions are made in our general education, and many of our fine arts majors are like that. Nursing is like that. Some of our College of Education and Human Services majors are like that. But that all becomes clearer to the student once they start and we explain the curriculum. But yes, they do have a lot of options to pick their own interests in their own classes. Can a student obtain a BFA in dance and also double major in a science like nutrition or biology? This is one of those tough questions to answer because the technical answer is yes, although in reality, the answer is likely no, for one very simple reason. This would take about 6 years to finish everything and at a normal pace. And we want students to graduate in 4 years, and we want students, if they really have multiple interests, to consider going to school for a master's afterward. There's nothing preventing a student from attaining a BFA in dance now and then a master's degree in nutrition or in biology later. It is actually more doable than you might think. So that is a recommendation an advisor might have for a student in this situation. But there's also options for minors. So a dance major, a nutrition minor, for instance, that is doable. That fits in our curriculum, and that might be another recommendation we might make. I'm going to do one more chat comment and then move to the Q&A, and then we'll come back to the chat just to make sure we get to some of those oldest questions that were asked over there. Are there entrance exams needed to take before classes are selected for first-year students? There will be some placement tests that are required. We place students for foreign language first. There is a foreign language requirement here at Montclair State. For some students, they may need a math or a chemistry placement if they are planning on taking science majors or pre-med direction. There are also placements for math for business students and for certain other majors as well. And there may be some extra requirements for writing and reading depending on students' struggles in high school. So admissions will be the primary driver of that information as well. That would be something that's important to keep your eye on, and your students to keep their eyes on as they go through the admissions process. They'll explain everything there. So as I mentioned, I'm going to take a break from the chat for a moment, go to the Q&A. I'll come back to the chat if I didn't get to your comment yet. We'd love a contact to confirm dual credit hours toward gen ed requirements. Let me think about if I have that contact. I don't believe that I have one right now, but admissions does a lot of the work there. Your individual admissions counselor, I would say, is the best first step. If you do not know who that is, the general email or the general phone number for our admissions office would be a great fit. Their phone number is easy to remember. I've got it memorized. And if you're listening and ready to take it down, I'll state it right now, and I'll be happy to put it in the chat later as well. Admissions phone number is 973-655-4444. Their email, I believe, is admissions@Montclair, but I may be wrong on that. How can my daughter connect with a current nursing student? That is a great question, and I admit I don't have the answer to that. That is something that would be more tied to the programming run through the admissions office, and I'm a member of the academic administration. So that's a great question that I would direct back toward admissions, and you may find some more information over there. At what point do incoming freshmen find out if high school AP, CAP, dual enroll credits are accepted, and what requirements they may fill? Generally, and this is not true of everything, we take scores of 3 or better for AP. That's not true with the English Lit and the English language. We require 4s for that, and maybe some others as well. But we find those out as soon as we receive the scores. If the student's already taken it, we can get the scores pretty quickly. If the student is taking it this semester, we really don't end up getting those scores till mid-July, so it becomes kind of late. With dual enrollment credits, once we receive a transcript from the participating college, we can evaluate it almost right away. So it really all hinges on when we receive the record. We can start figuring out where that all goes at that time. Not every class neatly transfers over. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of times, let's just use Essex County College as an example. A student takes a public speaking course, they transfer it to Montclair State. We already know what that class is, and it fits very nicely into where it's supposed to go. A student takes a class, and it happens a lot with four-year universities. Let's take another local university, Fairleigh Dickinson. A lot of dual enrollment from Fairleigh Dickinson happens. And they take an anthropology class, and it comes in, and we don't quite know exactly what this anthropology is. That will need to go through a separate evaluation with the department to determine exactly where that fits in. We'll count it as credit every time, as long as the student gets at least a C- in the class. Where it fits sometimes gets trickier depending on the exact class. So I wanted you to know that. When you have declare a major by if currently deciding, great question. The deadline to declare a major is when a student makes it to 60 credits completed. That's halfway. So typically that's the end of the sophomore year. There are some majors that are bigger, more complex, and really need to be declared sooner. One example of that is the chemistry major. Not to pick on the sciences, but chemistry, you need to have chemistry 1 before chemistry 2, before organic 1, before organic 2, before experimental, and so on. So there's a lot of rigid steps to some majors that make it harder to finish on time the later you declare. Not impossible, but harder. The advisor would be someone that's a great resource to help make sure that game plan works as best as possible. But we also want to let the student go through that thinking process to make sure that they make the right decision. Would a music education student meet with 2 advisors to make sure that they're getting both areas of classes, or advisors specific for that area? That's a great question. So all students will have 1 primary advisor. in their primary field of study. And in this instance, it would be a music faculty member. As I mentioned in the presentation, there will also be someone who is a generalist in the college, so the College of the Arts, that can be almost like a backup and a reserve for when things are needed. Now with education, that's a very interesting situation where there absolutely will be support also from what we call our Center of Pedagogy. That's our education people. They're not a formal advisor per se, but they are a resource that has as much to say as the advisor in making sure the curriculum happens in the right way. Montclair State has a weird setup when it comes to teaching. The major is not called education, so it's not a double major in this instance. It's a music major, and next to it is a program with a certification to become a teacher. So this is something that works very well. Montclair State's very well known for how we train our teachers. And so we do absolutely have a lot of help for these students in both areas, but the primary support will still come from that primary major of music. Do student athletes have 2 advisors pre-major? Yeah, actually they do, a lot of cases. Not every case, but for a lot of students, they'll find their primary advisor is someone in University College, but they also will have either Emily Slavin, our current athletics advisor, or Tara Reiniger, the director of advising in athletics, as a secondary resource. And a lot of times that's the person that the athlete works with, because they're in the athletic center. And so they're there in the study hall that athletes regularly have to attend. They're hosting meetings, helping students prepare classes. The 2 advisors do work hand in hand in those situations. Is there a chance to meet with an advisor over the summer if the incoming freshman has questions or wants to make changes? 100% yes. So just to fast forward a bit on what to expect, I had mentioned a survey asking students about their interests. We'll start sending them out hopefully within the next month, believe it or not. We start building schedules not until May or June. Okay, that process could take all the way into July, believe it or not. But once the schedule is made, if there are any other questions, there will also be outreach from the advisor to then meet with the student. We're happy to take on those conversations and really try to find out what the student needs. I can't guarantee that changes can be made to every schedule, but I can guarantee that someone will be there to listen. And if there's a real problem with a schedule, that we'll work to fix it. Absolutely, if a student took a writing class and we gave them a writing class, yeah, we're gonna fix that. A student ended up with a general education in music and really wanted a general education in photography. I can't guarantee that can happen, but the conversation can certainly happen. After the first semester, is scheduling done by total credits, so the freshman schedule will last, and do athletes get priority scheduling? That actually is a very good description of current practice. There's priority scheduling right now for athletes, for students in our honors program, for certain leadership positions on campus. And then our seniors register, and then our juniors, and so on. So many freshmen, yeah, they might not get the perfect schedule when they register themselves. But we teach them how to do it the best possible, some tricks of the trade to make sure it works as well as possible. But in the end, that's the reality of the situation. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that seniors are not taking the same classes as freshmen. A capstone course in a major is not available to freshmen. The general education that the freshmen need, the seniors have mostly finished. So it does work out okay, but it admittedly may not result in a perfect schedule every time. Let's finish the Q&A and then I'll return back to the chat. Let's see. I don't want to, I had a scrolling issue. I want to make sure I don't miss something. Okay. If a student decides to pick a minor, can they do that at any time? Great. So the deadline to declare a major, as I had mentioned, is 60 credits. There is no deadline to declare a minor. The only deadline is, can they finish it before graduation? In reality, minors tend to just fit into space already in the curriculum. it is unlikely to make the course load heavier in most instances. How does that work? I'm going to use an example of a history major, although it's really true of any major, almost any major. The history major is only 36 credits. Credit is basically an hour of class in a semester. So 36 credits. In the general education is 48 credits. Now, if you do some quick mental math, 36 and 48 do not equal 120 to graduate. So there's a lot of free elective space. That space can be put toward a minor, maybe even 2 minors, maybe a double major, or maybe some other area of specialty for a student. So in any example, minors can easily be added to most majors. Some of them you really need to fit it in and play the puzzle, put all the pieces together the right way, but it can work. And a lot of times classes can count as 2 things as well. So again, let's take this history major. If a student wanted to be a humanities major, minor, humanities minor requires a history class in it. So that can count for the history major and the humanities minor, and maybe even a gen ed as well at the same time. So these double dipping and triple dipping opportunities are also there to make things work much more better together. What is full orientation like for first years, and when is it? I want to be very frank with you. Orientation is completely different this year for the first time. So I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be like. It is in the end of August for all students. So it used to be a session over the summer in June or July. The university has decided we want to do things differently, and it will be an experience that happens, I believe it's the week before the semester begins. And it's new to us as well as new to you. So I can't really tell you exactly what that will be like. You'll receive a lot of information about it in the coming weeks, months, and definitely by the summer when registration for orientation opens up. Our course is taught online over the summer. Some are and some are not. So it's a great opportunity to do that if you're not if your student does not live locally. But there are classes that are offered in person as well. We also have a winter session, believe it or not. And those classes are either fully online or what they call hybrid, meaning half online and half in person. That allows us to fit it in the 4 weeks between final exams in December and the start of the spring semester, which is always the day after Martin Luther King Day. Good questions. Do you still offer Red Hawk for a day for interested students? This is a great question for admissions. Again, I'm an academic affairs administrator, so I don't want to speak to them. I think so, but I do not want to say anything definitive on that one. That is a better question for the admissions office or your own admissions counselor specifically. It's concerning to me as a parent that the prospective students are not allowed to view the classrooms, especially the media programs. When can they see the studios available? Another one that I would like to defer to the admissions office specifically, who may be able to figure something out with you, especially the media programs. They're cool looking. Our college, School of Common Media has brand new resources. They're really great. So I really don't know the answer to this, but I feel like there might be a way to resolve this, again, through our admissions office. When does a design student become eligible to apply for optional practical training? I admit I don't know the answer to this. This is outside of my area of expertise. I would start with admissions, and they may refer you to the art and design department within the College of the Arts, who might have more information on this. That was our Q&A side, I believe, and I'm going to move back to the chat, and we'll see what else there is here as well. Give me one moment. I want to make sure I don't mess up the scrolling here. Okay. When is the due date to be in New Jersey from vacation for freshmen? So orientation would be the due date if you're planning a vacation. We need students at the mandatory orientation, and those are, I believe the earliest that could begin is August 22nd, but don't quote me on that. I want you to use that as a ballpark, that around that time, last 2 weeks in August is when orientation will begin and the semester will begin soon after. Are dance majors encouraged to double major or minor? Admittedly, as I already mentioned, specifically using dance as an example, double majors are very hard for that major and many others, to be frank, as well. So I can't say that they're encouraged. I encourage minors to every student who's interested, as long as it fits the curriculum and they can still graduate in a reasonable amount of time. So absolutely, that's a great option. Will we have a chance to see the classrooms? Again, that's a great question that I will defer to admissions and see how they go about that process. As someone outside of the admissions office, this is a better question for them, but a good question. How many students are in the product design major? I did mention that, so I'll move on from there. Are new students guaranteed housing? That's a good question. Again, I don't want to answer in the wrong way, so I would defer that to admissions and potentially to our Office of Residence Life and their webpage as well. How does general education work for fine arts? I answered that one. How about special needs? My son might want to go into criminal justice. Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about our Disability Resource Center, so that still applies here. Our criminal justice major just has a different name. It's called Justice Studies. So it does the same thing that you would think of a typical criminal justice field. It's great for careers in law enforcement and corrections and probation. It can be great for paralegal, for international justice and non-government organizations and the United Nations and government and many other places that I didn't mention. But that absolutely is an opportunity for students. My son is waitlisted. What can we do to enhance his chances to get admitted? That is absolutely something I would defer to admissions and the admissions counselors. The moment that I say a recommendation is the moment I get it wrong and someone is mad at me. I appreciate the question, but it's not something that I feel confident in answering. How many years should my daughter study to be an MD for psychology? The typical track, and I say typical because it can be different. You do your undergraduate, 4 years typically, like at Montclair State. As a student is finishing that up, they start applying to medical school, which is 3 or 4 years. After that, there is a residency, which is like a required, it's not an internship, it's a real job, but your student would be at one particular hospital or a hospital group, rounding out their education with hands-on practice. That can be anywhere from another 3 years to, I have a friend who is continuously doing postdoc fellowships, and he's 36 and still doing it. So I will say that it can be done in a minimum of about 8-9 years, but it could be more than that as well. Good question. My son applied to the film school. Will it be possible for him to reach out to some student in film school? That's a good question. I answered a similar one about nursing. Being able to meet a student sounds like something that the admissions office may have available, and I would reach out to your admissions counselor or the general contact as well. Is cybersecurity and criminal justice about the same? My son has dual enrollment credits. How do they test out? Cybersecurity certainly is related to criminal justice. It's also related to computer science and information technology and data sciences and many other fields as well. So depending on the exact classes that were taken, it may work great and count as part of our curriculum. It may not, but it may lead to a great minor opportunity. And either way, those experiences can be something that can still work toward an eventual career or future grad program as well. When do you have to declare a major by? Okay, 60 credits, as I mentioned earlier. If interested in sports, what are some recommendations? Yeah, mention sports events in tourism. That's absolutely a great area in the business school. We also have sports journalism in the School of Common Media. A lot of students who want more hands-on with athletes might think exercise science, which is a great stepping stone to eventual master's degrees in athletic training or in physical therapy or in sports conditioning and things like that. We also have a physical education major that can result in a phys ed certification. So lots of opportunities in lots of different ways to work with sports specifically. But the one that you identify there, absolutely, great idea. Can you do a double major in unrelated fields like math and music? Again, theoretically, yes. In practice, not really, because the music major is, like I had mentioned with dance, it's just way too big. Our math major is about 55 credits, so it's medium sized. It can be double majored. Again, tough, but not impossible. Is there a possibility to pick housing? That is a great question for our Office of Residence Life or our admissions office. So I will defer to them. If a student's taken 3 years of a language in high school, will they need to take 6 credits at Montclair State? Good question. It's actually really dependent on the placement. The placement that we ask students to go through will determine their level here. If they place into our 3rd level, 1 semester needed, only 3 credits, and they're in great shape. If they place at our 1st or 2nd level, we do still need 6 credits of the same language here at Montclair State. For many of your students, if they are fluent in a language, if they speak it at home, if they write it and they can read it, we do accept as transfer something called the NYU, the New York University 12-point test. It's a great way to have language credits come in for about 80 different world languages. And it can actually count as more than our requirement, up to 12 credits. It's a great opportunity. So again, that's the NYU 12-point test. If you want to look that up, that's another way to get that done by taking a test run through New York University. Could you speak a bit with regards to interest in the accounting business major? Yes, so these are restricted majors. They require a GPA in high school, or if not, if students don't get in or decide to wait and be pre-major for a while, a 3.0 GPA at Montclair State to get in. So that's something that absolutely, if students are interested, the advisors here will help them figure out the best path here. It's a lot of work to do either of those majors. They're large majors, but absolutely great opportunities to get into the world of business, and we'd be happy to help with that as well. Are nursing students housed together? I don't believe so, but I don't want to speak to something that's a better question for our housing office, our residence life office. Oh, when is Accepted Students Day? That's a great question. I will try to find it for you after I finish the last of these, because we are getting close to time. I want to cover as many of these as possible. So if I can find Accepted Students Day before we're done, I will do so, but it should be on our website. Any words of wisdom for a sports media major? I was a journalism major myself. Work on your writing, work on your skills speaking. Those are the big things I would say. It's a competitive field, and the more you can stand out, absolutely gonna work dividends on the end. If a student decides to pick a minor, can they do that at any time? I did answer that. Product design course is a hands-on major. How does this work during COVID? There are, and this is across the university, there are some classes that just can't be held virtually very well. Think of a lab for our nursing majors or our biology or chemistry majors. That's going to be true with product design, I think, in many cases. I imagine that some of them can be done online as well. A lot of the stuff that is being utilized by product design majors is our computer work as well. So it's not fully hands-on sketching. It can be hands-on on a computer, drawing, 3D modeling, 3D printing, and so on. I can't speak much more than that, but it's a really good question that I think admissions might be better equipped to answer on that. What's the best major and set of classes to be a federal agent? The answer is yes. The government takes lots of people of all different backgrounds, academic backgrounds. So a lot of people think of political science or justice studies, and they are great fits. But a philosophy major, an English major, a business major, and lots more in between. There are places for everyone in government and in law enforcement as well. So I recommend students keep their options open and really think about it and talk with an advisor to learn more. If you take a language AP, and you score high enough, you would not need to take a language here at Montclair State. That is correct. Same with dual enrollment credits. Yeah. That's not true with CLEP. If you've heard of the CLEP test, CLEP test for languages is a poor choice at Montclair State, to be very honest. We'll accept for some credit, but languages are still required here in that example. Summer courses for incoming freshmen. The short answer is yes. Talk to admissions, they'll help you set it up. They need to do some tweaks to the application and in deposit structure, but it is an option for incoming students to take summer coursework. We also have a summer bridge program that is likely to be continued from last year with some extra support in place. So it's another thing to consider asking about if your student wants to take classes this summer. Students undecided between law school and science, any words of advice? Come in pre-major. I think that's a better idea. Keep those options open, talk them through. In the end, if the student is getting to sophomore or junior year and still not sure, I might almost recommend the science major if they're truly split down the middle. You can go to law school with any major. It's hard to become a scientist with a jurisprudence major, which is what you usually think of as our law major. Nursing students, can they minor? I believe so, but that because that program is so specific, I would recommend referring you to the admissions office who can tell you a little bit more. They may refer you to the nursing school, okay? So just full disclosure there, admissions may not know that answer either, but the nursing school should. Can you give information about financial aid? Other than that the process is done, well, no, I really shouldn't say much about financial aid. Anything money related, I want to make sure I give the right info. The FAFSA, the federal application, or the federal application for student aid, it's not exactly what it is, but it's close. That's a required component. If you haven't done that, do it as soon as possible once your tax returns are in. Financial aid office and admissions will give you the rest. So it could be any split between grants and loans and potentially academic scholarships from federal, from university, and from state resources. I don't want to really say more than that because I'm not a financial officer, but absolutely, we got to pay for college, and you should ask admissions for more info on that as soon as you can. Is product design part of the STEM? I don't believe so, believe it or not. I consider it STEM myself. You know, it's kind of an ambiguous term, right? Science, technology, engineering, math can cover a lot of things. Product design, you're creating new things from scratch, new products, new materials. So it's got chemistry and science in it, but it is an art major here at Montclair State and at many universities. And I see a thank you. I'm very glad that it was informative for you, Tracy. Absolutely. Sign language count as a language. Yes, we offer sign language here, and we accept sign language from credit as a foreign language. So absolutely, that's a great question, and that is true. Can a student satisfy the language requirement in a language that is new to them? Yes. If you struggled with German in high school, like I did, can they take Spanish instead? 100%. And you start from the beginning with Spanish 1 and 2. If you speak it at home, we'll still want the test or the placement. So if this example where someone took German in high school, speaks Spanish at home, wants to take Spanish, we would still want to test and see what the level is. But if there's no background, absolutely level 1's an appropriate place to go. I was late to this Zoom. Did you mention anything on pre-med? I didn't. That is an application option. So if your student's interested in pre-med, have them mark it on the application. We have a pre-med office with an advisor who will work in tandem with whoever the major advisor is as well to get students where they need to be. Lots of great resources. There's a curriculum of its own that comes through pre-med to do outside of the classroom. To be prepared for med school and to receive a recommendation from that office for the med school application. So absolutely something that is great to look into and to get started on. Okay, yep, another sign language, absolutely counts as a foreign language here at Montclair State. Oh, Anupama, if you haven't seen, thank you. Accepted Students Days are April 3rd and 10th. So thank you for that research. That's a great, great shout out there for Accepted Students Day. We will have lots of advisors and departments and faculties there to speak to your students and to you as well. No email sent for Accepted Students Day. Not surprising. It is a little early in their planning structure, but I would keep your eye open for that. Product design, they've told me over there, it's all about sketching. You get really good at sketching ideas and designs every day, and that's how you get in, and you'll learn all the stuff from there. That's really what I would say about that. Do we have tennis courts and clubs? I think clubs is what you meant. Yes, I think so. I actually am not 100% sure. We do have club sports. I need to double check tennis, to be honest. I don't want to misspeak there and have you find out later on that it's not there. Sivan, if you want to wait a little bit, I will try to find that out for you once I'm done with the last points in the chat here. At what point does a student get an advisor assigned to them? As soon as possible. You'll likely see those start to happen as early as May. So then the communication in the summer can be with the student's specific advisor. We will be starting to reach out next month, but I do not believe that's going to be with your specific advisor in most cases. And that's meant to be more of a welcome to the university. You're very welcome. I'm glad you got a lot out of that, Kathy. And parents are absolutely invited to Accepted Students Day. And there is a parent component to orientation. So it's not the exact same route that you'll take with your student at all times, but there is a parent orientation that you can expect. And you'll learn more about that as they get further along in the planning there. Oh, and Savine, yeah, so the number for all university phone numbers is 973-655. Okay, so that's for everything. And then admissions itself is 4444. So it's 973-655-4444. Deborah, I believe that they are doing it all in person, but don't hold me to it. It is still so early in the planning process that even if they want it in person now, it could change on a dime if the health situation in the state changes. So I do think that they're trying to find a way to get everyone on campus. But that's the best answer I have there. I am going to look up Savine's question about tennis. If there's any last thoughts that you all have, feel free to throw them in the chat. I prefer that over the Q&A for the moment. But otherwise, we are all set until I find out more about the tennis situation on campus. You're all very welcome. I hope you got a lot out of this. And absolutely feel free to share any commentary with admissions if you need more information for your own personal circumstances. And have a great evening. Good night, everybody. And I will be on for just a minute longer. So this is what I look like if you didn't see that already. Okay, Montclair State Athletics Tennis. So Savine, it does appear that we have recreational tennis and sports. Division III sports, there is no tennis. So if that's really important, that's something that I would start talking with your student right away, but then also talk to admissions about it as well. I think that's a really good opportunity to see what other resources might be available for students that are interested in that. Again, you're all very welcome. I'm glad that you all got a lot out of this. And again, I'll hang out just at least for a couple more minutes before I'm sure my wife will be yelling at me asking to help with my 2.5-year-old and my 2.5-month-old twins. So very, very crazy up there upstairs. Yeah, I wish so too for your sake as well. So I'm looking for any last minute questions. Thank you. Daughter is an IEP. Absolutely. That is exactly the right thing, Sabrina. That documentation from high school will still be relevant here. So absolutely hold on to it. Once the student's deposited, that contact with the Disability Resource Center can open up, work together to figure out what resources are available here at Montclair State and set a game plan in motion. We cannot provide resources without it. Okay, it's actually both a legal protection for you and the student to be connected to the Disability Resource Center to get what they need, but it's also something we can't provide without that to make sure that it's a legitimate situation. So absolutely, that's the next step there. Okay, we've got, I'm gonna give it a few more seconds. How quickly do product design majors? Yeah, TS, that's a great question. Oh, she's a twin as well. Great. Thank you. And you're very welcome. Product design students get a job after graduation. Yeah, I mean, that's tough to say. My understanding of the field, and I have a friend who's an industrial designer, is that it's an in-demand field. Can I say any more than that? No, honestly, not really. With any field, a lot of it has to do with how the student progresses in their own skills and their own capabilities, and then how the market is at graduation. I always recommend internships. Hands-on experience is absolutely essential for any job application, in my opinion. So even if it isn't a requirement, and I do believe a cooperative of some sort of hands-on experience is a requirement of product design. But even if it isn't a requirement, it should be on the student's radar in every situation. Okay, I think that just about covers it. Will there be internships at the university? I'm not sure. Absolutely, our career services will be able to help match those. So that's certainly the situation for off-campus opportunities. We do have a 3D printing lab on campus, so I'm sure that there's a way to be able to connect with that as well. That's out of our entrepreneurship center in the School of Business, but that's not something that is only for business students, it's for everyone. So that's another good way to be able to do that. Okay, I think my time is up. Best of luck with everyone. Again, any further questions, you can reach back out to our Office of Admissions, who can help provide those for you. Have a great evening and best of luck with your decision making over the next few months.